We can now say it. Merry Christmas to you. This is such a great season. I love Advent. I love the expectation. I love the preparation. And I know that some of you love Christmas even more. Some of you, now that it's here, are a little relieved. Whatever it is, I wish you a very blessed and Merry Christmas. That you enjoy this time as a family. Now that can be messy, and there's one memory that I have. My mom insists that it wasn't true, but I'm going to tell it to you anyway because I believe it's true, and it's embarrassing for her, so she's not here. So it was 1995 or 4, I forget, 94 or 95 when the movie Toy Story came out, and it was epic. It's beautiful. It was so good that they made 4 more and a bunch of little mini-series, and the most recent installation was 2019. Anyways, when that movie came out, I asked my mother, I don't think it was Christmas time, but I asked her for a gift. And the gift I wanted, the only gift I wanted, the only gift I needed, was a Mr. Potato Head. Now, I think some of you have heard me tell this story because my mother's response was memorable. And I tell this often. My mother's response to my request for a Mr. Potato Head toy was, why do you want that when you can have the real thing? A real potato. You can stick anything you want in there. You can put it anywhere. You can do anything. It's just a real thing. I did not have any interest in that dirty vegetable? Question mark? Gross. Out of my face. I want a toy. It didn't happen. Although the last time I told that story, like 3 Mr. Potato Heads appeared in my office. Please do not give me any Mr. Potato Heads. I'm talking about decades ago, like I've moved on. I think we do this with Jesus. Not only the demanding of things, but specifically, I think too often we seek to have a shiny, perfect Jesus. One that people will admire, congratulate us on. Sometimes we want to live a Christian life that people can admire. We want our life to be plastic and shiny when there's not much inside but chaos. But the real Christ is a little bit messier and a little less appealing. Tonight, we remember that he came in obscurity in a town of Bethlehem, rejected. He was so obscure. He was rejected from the inn. There was not even a Holiday Inn for him to stay at. He stayed in a stable with the aroma of animals and their feces. He was laid to rest not in a crib. Manger is not Hebrew for crib or bed. Manger is the Latin, Italian, French for eat. It was a feeding trough. You put hay on it not because it's cute, but because that's what animals eat. And that's where they laid Jesus. Very poor. The Word of God, that when he said, "Let there be light," there was light, became a baby who could not utter a word. The God who shaped the stars and constellations took on human flesh that was so weak it couldn't even hold up its own head. That is a messy, not so spectacular coming of our God. But he is Emmanuel. He not only came 2,000 years ago, and he's not only going to come at the end of the world, he comes today. He comes every day. And you and I miss it. Because he comes so small, we can miss it. There's a line from the book of wisdom that says, God, you show your might when the perfection of your power is disbelieved. You show your might when the perfection of your power is disbelieved. So many people drive by Catholic churches and they don't think for a second that God is in the Eucharist. So many come to Mass and they don't think for a second that God could possibly make himself so humble as taking the appearance of bread. That is our God, and this is good news for us because we live messy lives. Our families are messy and dirty. Our hearts, gosh, we surprise ourselves. I think if we're paying attention, if we're awake, we surprise ourselves with the evil thoughts and desires that come through us. December, is a difficult time. To have Jesus coming to us in humility this time of year, I think is providential because this time of year tends to be kind of heavy. A lot of people's health declines. As a priest for the last 7 years, this is a time of year I tend to have a lot of funerals. And I want to share something that is very difficult for me tonight. This time of year, I know I share a particular closeness with many of you because one of my best friends passed away yesterday. Some of you know him, Father Scott Sperry. He was assigned to the cathedral just this last summer. He was a priest 1 year longer than I've been, and he had been fighting leukemia for 16 years, and it finally beat him. But I feel so grateful for his life. One reason is because 3 years ago, in 2019, the doctors gave him a couple months to live. And we had him for 3 more years. He heard hundreds of more confessions, probably a couple thousand of confessions in those 3 years. He offered the Mass so many times. He counseled so many. And he offered countless prayers. He's a very humble man, broken like all of us. He was stubborn as all get out. And I think that's part of why he lasted in the ICU for a couple weeks. But 3 years ago, 2019, December, this time of year, it was actually the 18th of December. We all thought this was the end for him. And because of the chemotherapy and because of his bodily system shutting down, he was speaking a little blurry and confused, didn't always make a lot of sense what he said. But he always had this just joy and innocence about him. And he turned to one of my friends, Father Kevin, and he said, out of nowhere, no context for this, he said, it would be good if people actually knew Christ. That was one of his random thoughts in the depths of his illness as he was preparing himself to die. It would be good if people actually knew Christ. Those words really hit home for me tonight because as we contemplate the closeness of Jesus, his simplicity, how extremely approachable he makes himself. I invite you to consider that you and I include myself here, we are often tempted to be satisfied with a second-hand relationship with God. Too often we are satisfied to hear people talk about their relationship with God. We're very edified by, family members who are very religious, and we love hearing about them talk about God. Or we love hearing preachers talk about God. Or we love reading books about God. We listen to the scriptures to hear about people who had a relationship with God. But my friends, that's a second-hand relationship. We're made for more. We tend not to think, believe, or desire a first-hand relationship because relationships are hard. That's the real reason. Relationships are kind of dirty, messy, kind of like a real potato. But it's the real thing. We deserve the real thing. This Christmas, I hope you can desire and pray for an increase of the desire for the real thing. Jesus, grant me the grace to desire a real relationship with Jesus, with you. Mother Teresa, just to drive this point home, this isn't just an interesting thought for tonight. It's a very real struggle for all of us. It's not just for normal people. This is a struggle that even religious sisters, women who consecrated their lives, Mother Teresa, when she was still alive, she gave a talk to hundreds of her sisters. At this point, her order, the Missionaries of Charity, had exploded. There were several hundred sisters, and they all had given their lives to Jesus. They were praying every day in the chapel, and Mother Teresa looks out at them one day, and she says this: I worry that some of you still have not really met Jesus, one-to-one, you and him alone. Mother Teresa said to these women consecrated to God, Jesus wants me to tell you again how much is the love he has for each of you. If we really believe that, what would that do for us? Imagine, what would it be like if you really believed that God comes close, that he is God with us, with love, here and now in the mess of it all. I don't know what to tell you. This means a lot to me. I often worry and get anxious about talking in my sermons. I get very anxious because I know that God has something he wants to say to you. And many times I've gotten that sense that he tells me, I don't want them to know about me. I want them to know me. This, friends, is a kind of a shift. We all have a philosophy of life. Hinduism, the Eastern traditions have a philosophy of life that we need to strive for perfection. That down upwards, humanity needs to strive to reach perfection, to reach the divine. That we need to put our lives together or push out all distractions. You know, even the ancient pagan religions were all about pleasing the gods. That it's all about me getting my life in such a way that is shiny and attractive to God. And then maybe they'll have favor on me. And too often Christians adopt that philosophy, that downwards up. But that is not the Christian faith. Our philosophy of life is the reverse, that God comes down to us through the ages, through the prophets, through signs and wonders. He was trying to lead his people to himself. He descended, he would speak, he humbled himself to try to help his creatures in all of their infidelities and failures. He engaged us. It is he who loved us before we ever loved him. And all through the ages, the lineage we heard of Jesus, this messy family God entered into out of his desire to really descend, to draw us to himself, to do that work for us. And I don't think we accept it because there's no glory in that. I recently read the Iliad with a group of priests. We love reading good literature, and we were discussing the Iliad, which is, again, a little glance into what the worldview of the pagans was. And it was so much kind of inspiring talk about glory. And there is no glory in the Christian life except for God's glory. Because we believe that he gives us the glory. That he has paid the price, he has won the victory, and that he descends humbly to give us the merits of his gift. And that's very humbling for us, and our egos don't like that. But this is good news for us this Christmas. And as you go back to your families, as you enjoy yourselves, please celebrate with grateful, joyful hearts, because he is with us in it all. Look for him. I promise you, if you look for him, you will find him. But he won't be the shiny, plastic, attractive Jesus that we can hold up with pride before anybody. But he's going to be real. And you know the interesting difference between a Mr. Potato Head and a real potato? You can eat a real potato.